A production of kmmedia.pro. Welcome back to Positive Talk Radio. Our goal is simple: to explore evolving ideas one conversation at a time. So come on over into our world. I know you'll like it, because on today's show, we don't often have an opportunity to talk to somebody who is living in tomorrow, because he's actually living in tomorrow because he's in a different part of the world, if you're wondering how that works. My name is Kevin McDonald. You're listening to Positive Talk Radio, and our author friend that we're going to be talking to is Dick Wybrow. He is a Canadian author. His novels are mainly set in the United States, where he grew up. He's a former stand-up comedian, which I got to ask him about that, because how do you be a former stand-up comedian when you must think funny thoughts all the time? Anyway, that's my opinion. Anyway, and but first, I want to introduce you, say hello to Eric, and find out what the weather's going to do for the rest of the week, and all that kind of stuff. How are you, my friend Eric?
Hey, Kevin, I'm doing well. And 50 degrees here in the day before winter. So, and it's sunny. I mean, I think we're having a pretty decent late fall.
You know what? And tomorrow is my favorite day of the year. You know why that is?
Because the days start getting longer again.
You must be psychic. You read my mind.
Happy winter solstice to you and all our listeners. Looks like it's going to be a good day for it, too. 52 degrees, partly cloudy.
Awesome. And then every day it gets like 30 seconds or a minute longer. So savor that minute, because it's important.
That's right. We'll be back to a 5 o'clock sunset here before you know it.
Before you have, absolutely, and that's really cool. And so I'm glad the days are getting longer, because then spring's right around the corner, and then summer, and then fall, and then winter and stuff. Anyway, but that's our lot in life. But thank you, Eric, for taking such good care of us here on Positive Talk with KKNW. And with that, I'll introduce my co-host for the hour. His name is Mitch Parfit. Mitch, how are you?
Kevin, I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Very nice, thank you. Did you know that today's the shortest day of the year?
You know, I knew it's funny. I don't know. I can't remember. I knew it was coming. I was just thinking about it yesterday. I was like, what day is the shortest day? So I mean, the days are short. So
there is very little light. I wake up and it's dark. I go to sleep and it's dark, and it's dark when I get off work and all that kind of stuff. So
just a life filled with darkness over there.
Yeah, for being Positive Talk, yeah, it's a life full of darkness. So in any event, we've got a great author that we're going to be talking to this hour. He's a very funny guy, and his stuff. These are his words, not mine. I would say his art form is over, has been heard on the radio by millions, seen on TV in 213 countries. I didn't know there were that many countries, but apparently there are. So
222, I think.
There are how many?
I think there's 222 or 220. I can't remember. But it's pretty close.
Well, it's pretty amazing. That's a useless piece of trivia that I never would have come up with. But in any event, Dick Wybrow is with us. Dick, welcome to the show. How are you, young man?
Doing good, man, and welcome to the longest day of the year. Because I'm in Auckland, New Zealand, so it's summertime here, baby. The sun is shining, and where you go to bed while it's still light outside, it's a warm time of year. It's beautiful here right now. It's 22 degrees, which sounds really cold because it's Celsius. I learned something since I've been here, so I got to give you this. So it's a little trick. So if you want to work out Celsius to Fahrenheit, it's a real handy thing to make you sound smart. It doesn't always work. It's not perfect. Just double the number, right? The Celsius number, and add 30. So if it's 22 here, you double it 44, add 30, it's 74. There you go. So it's about 74, 75 degrees here right now and sunny. So it's nice, but it's a kiwi sun, which will fry you like an egg. So, but it's beautiful. It's beautiful, except it's sunny with a chance of cancer. It's basically what the temperature is today.
So is
My
now
favorite.
Yeah, exactly. Now you are Canadian, and
Yeah,
you grew up in the United States. How the
I
heck
did.
did you end up down there?
So my father is Kiwi. And so he went up to the U.S. when he was 18 years old. Well, he tried to go to the U.S. and they're like, "Oh no, we got enough Kiwis. Go to Canada. They'll take anybody." And so he flew up to Canada and he met my mother up there. And a little while later, I came around. I don't know how that works. They told me one day they'd tell me about it. But then when I was about 8, 9 years old or so, we ended up going south of the border into the U.S. And so I was a chubby, red-haired boy with a Canadian accent. I went to New Jersey. That is a baptism by fire.
Wow.
Yo, dude, what are you doing with the red hair?
Yeah.
And what do you think? You know, I can't even imagine.
Yeah. And so from there up in the Midwest, and so I spent my formative years in Minneapolis. A lot of those formative years were freezing, but then in over the next couple of years, I did radio, and so I was in all over, man. I was in Florida, it was in Georgia, I was in Missouri, I was in Southern California, all over the place. And then about 11 years ago, I discovered doing some research, late night research. I was just Googling because I was bored. And I discovered that because of my father's heritage, that I was a Kiwi by descent, which means that I'm an automatic Kiwi and they can't not let me in. And so I went to my wife and I said, "Hey, I'm a Kiwi." And she goes, "And what are we doing here?" And I tell you, Kevin and Mitch, that was October. We were in country by January. That's what we did, and that was 11 years ago.
You know,
We should
the
have told
funny,
the kids. We should have told the kids, really,
yeah.
before we left.
Well, you know, the interesting thing is times have changed so much. Now, if you're an American, they won't let you into Canada.
Really?
Oh no, they're like you have to have somebody sponsor you, and you have to have a job, and you have to have all these things or they won't let you in. Because I get people that after every presidential election, somebody will say, "I'm leaving the country. I can't stand being here." Well, Canada ain't gonna let you go in there.
No. Oh, Canada's nice. Canada is I mean, I grew up, those early years were in Winnipeg, and that is a special kind of cold. Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada is a special. In fact, just a few years ago, Google it, take a look around. There is an article about it. It was colder in Winnipeg than it was on the surface of the moon. That's how cold it was. That so I like to say Winnipeg is a nice place to be from. And right now I'm from it. I'm away from it. Lovely people, but too damn cold.
Now, when your website says that your stuff has been heard on the radio by millions, describe what your stuff is.
Just the nonsense that I spew out all the time. So for about 12 years, I did radio. I went from stand-up comedy, did that for a couple of years, and then I got into radio. And so I started out in radio in El Dorado Springs, Missouri, which is 2.5 hours like south of Kansas City, way out there, like Ozarks kind of territory, you know. And so I was there, and it was a little 1200 watt radio station, and it was a converted farmhouse. And I used to get there in the morning, and then I'd have to turn the radio station on. It's like, and there was a big tower behind me. And I was getting hair cancer from it. I'm pretty positive about that. And so I ended up doing mornings there, and I learned a lot about Southern culture because it's the first time I'd ever been in the South. And it was really fascinating. The people were sweet. The people were amazing. And so from there, I ended up going to Florida, and then another stop in Florida in Pensacola, which was another amazing time. Pensacola is a choice city. It's a beautiful city. They took me up in a big NAS helicopter, Naval Air Station folks over there, the military. And I thought, since I was working for a rock station, I thought, oh, they want to show me all the girls in the bathing suits. No. That's what they didn't want to show me that. What they wanted to show me as they flew over the beach, they were like, take a look at the water. And in the water, there were just shadows all around the beach. And I said, what are those? Who put shadows in the water? Because I was not accepting what was happening. He goes, no, those are sharks. And there were just dozens, if not hundreds of them. They just weren't interested in humans. They weren't interested because we don't taste very good, but they were just all been down the beach. So I never set foot in that water. I was there for a year and a half, never once went into the water. Then from there, Southern California. So, and then after that, Atlanta, Georgia. So when I say millions collectively, yes, there were millions of people who heard all my wandering.
Well, in my world, because fat equals flavor. Because
Sure.
I'm well marbled, we'll say sharks would like
Right.
me better than they'd like Mitch. Mitch is fit and he's all so they would spit him out. I would be like a gourmet meal.
There was a woman when I was there who got bit by a shark, and they said, yeah, she was out there swimming in the bait fish. She's like, hold on, let's go back to the bait fish thing. Maybe you don't swim in bait fish. I mean, I don't know sharks. I'm thinking, don't swim in their food. That seems like really high on the list of places to avoid sharks, avoid their pantry. But she ended up getting bit on the rumpus. And then, she was okay after that. Bit of a tattoo on the bottom. Other than that, she was fine.
Did they catch the shark? Did she bring it in or?
No. like she was at the end of a line and they
I don't know. She was obviously the best bait. So I mean,
I think what it is, sometimes they say that when animals they get a taste of human flesh, that now they're hungry for it. I think when sharks take a bite of us, they go, well, that's the last time I'm having that. Send that back. That's no good at all. That's underdone.
That's amazing. So you were in, now tell me about being a stand-up comic, because what I like to do is I like to talk to people that are doing things that very few other people have actually ever done, and to be willing. I don't know, Mitch, have you ever done stand-up? Have you ever thought about doing stand-up comedy?
Oh yeah, I was just talking with somebody about it actually a week or so back. I've been writing stand-up stuff for probably 2 or 3 years now. And I'm at that point where I'm going to start venturing out, but I haven't got up and done it yet, but stay tuned.
Well, I'm going to give you the opportunity to talk to a professional stand-up comic to tell you the pitfalls and all that kind of stuff. If you'd like to engage with Dick in a conversation about being a stand-up comic, I would never.
I can tell you first, Mitch, the longest minute of your entire life will be a minute where you don't get any laughs. There's time dilation. It's amazing. It's time travel. It's like, when will this end? Because when you first do stand-up comedy, I did it up in Minneapolis, you do open mic nights and you get 3 minutes. And that is, you think 3 minutes, I've got at least 10. No, you don't. Not you, me. No, I didn't. And get up on stage. The very first time I had to do in stand-up, I think I did 5 minutes. And it felt like 5 years. It was like I was just sweating. I need to get off of here. But there was one nugget. There was one moment where people laughed. And so it's like anything in life. It's like I found that one little bit that worked. I got rid of the rest of it, and I just grew from that little nugget. So 4 minutes and 41 seconds didn't work, but that 19 seconds did. And I grew that 19 seconds to a minute, then 3 minutes, and 5, then 20, then eventually headlining. And that in some ways is, for me, I've sort of taken that in my own life. It's just, I find the bits that work and I kind of slough off the stuff that doesn't. And I sort of fan those flames on the stuff that does work. And it seems to work out.
Yeah, that makes sense. Don't keep telling the same jokes if you're not getting any laughs.
No, but it's funny because if you ever watch comedians over the years, like I saw one comedian, I knew all of his stuff, head to tail, and I probably saw him 15 different times over the years, and I saw him develop a routine over the years, and it was really fascinating to watch how it got some laughs. It was kind of the weaker stuff, but then at the end of that, but like the 12th time I'd maybe seen him, it was just primo. And so he'd been working on it all that time, just honing it and changing a word here or shifting a word here or an expression here or an eye roll here. It's really fascinating, the stuff that works.
It's even fun when you've got a guy. I'm not going to tell you who this is, but I'm going to have you guys guess on who this is. And I think it'll become apparent. But it's kind of like the best of hits where you hear the same comedy sketch, but he does a little bit differently, but it's all kind of the same. And there's a one line that I've used in my entire life, which is, I had the right to remain silent, but I didn't have the ability.
They either be, was that Bill Engvall or his buddy on the tour?
Ron White, yes.
Ron White. That's the other guy, Ron White.
I like
Yeah.
bowling ball.
It was the I was in a bar in New York City.
Right.
That whole sketch.
Yeah. No, Larry, Larry the Cable Guy, Dan Whitney. I got a great opportunity to hang out with him a bit because he used to do radio at Rock 100 WDIT in Orlando, and I was at the alternative rock station, and we used to see each other through the glass. And so, anyways, I ended up midland for Larry at like this Chinese food restaurant before he really blew up. And it was pretty great. It was actually amazing. This is back there in the late 90s or so when there was stand-up everywhere. I mean, it was just the hottest thing in the world. It was all over television. It was in every bar, and he was fantastic. He was really gracious. But that's the character. He had about 8 different characters he did or so, and that's the one that really took off. And so that's the one he's embraced, and he's done amazingly well with it.
And somebody's going to say, you mean to tell me that that's not how he really is? That's really is a character? He probably is from New York and has a New York accent, except for where was he from originally? Do you know?
Florida. He's from Florida. Destin, is it Destin? He's from Florida, like mid-Florida.
Yeah, because he got so big at one time that they had to fly him in to a stadium via a helicopter. And he had like 60,000 people. They're like, get her done. That's everybody was, that whole shtick. So
yeah, he's a good cat. He's a really good cat. And he told me it was funny because because he was still calling on my radio shows when he was really hitting it. And I remember when I made that turn from touring comedian to something different, where he was like, Dick, I'm playing theaters, and they spell theater R-E. Something's changed. And it was, he'd say he had something big on the horizon. He could tell me about it, couldn't say anything about it. If nothing else, he didn't want to put a kibosh on it. And that was Cars, when he ended up voicing Mater from Cars. So yeah, been pretty amazing ride for the guy.
In the meantime, you amongst being a DJ and being a stand-up comedian, when did you decide that you were going to be a writer?
Well, the writing thing was first, because I was a shy kid, and surprisingly, you may not believe it, I'm still very shy. I really am.
No,
but,
I don't believe
no,
it.
I really am. But so I like the writing, and really the stand-up and all that sort of stem from the writing side of it. Like I would write these stories. This is back when I was in my teens or so. And back then, this is pre-internet. It was almost pre-electricity, it feels like. But so back then, pre-internet. So when you would send a story out, like to some magazine, here, look at my story, you had to give them what was called an SASE, self-addressed stamped envelope. That way that when they send that rejection back to you, you've paid for that rejection, basically. And so, but after a couple of those, because it would take weeks and months and stuff like this. So I had this idea. Somehow it made sense in my head. Maybe it's the narcolepsy, but this made total sense to me. That if I write something this afternoon and get up on stage, then I am, in a way, published. And that actually was the mindset that got me to doing stand-up comedy, that I could write bits and stories, because a lot of stuff I did was storytelling. I would write stories, get up on stage, and then I would every night be published. And that's how I ended up getting into stand-up comedy, which then eventually I morphed into radio, which was really a stand-up comedy, that's a work day. That is it. 45-minute work day. Anybody listening to this at work right now? 45-minute work day. What was I thinking leaving that? I mean, there was no 15-minute break. There were no lunches, but it was, but still you can hang. And then I went to a 4-hour work day. What am I thinking? I mean, it was like 5 times as much now with radio. And then after that, doing television, I did 10 hours. I totally went the wrong direction. But I've left all that behind now, and now it's all day I do as a writer. But it all began as writing.
Well, I'm pretty sure that after, you got married and stuff, going to doing stand-up and having, people want to buy you drinks and to stay out late at night, it lost its fascination for you a little bit.
There are no stand-up groupies. It's that's a myth. They you don't have those, or the people that might be stand-up groupies probably need a restraining order. Those sort of folks. But no, it just got to the point. Really, stand-up moving into radio is because, like I mentioned, there became this flood of there became this big flood of stand-up comedy on television, and there had been a time when you would go out to the clubs. And I mean, Mitch and Kevin, it was just like this. It's like you're in the Roman Colosseum. It was just this roar of this crowd around you. It was amazing. I mean, positive. They weren't calling for your death, but it was amazing. And then when stand-up got onto A&E and USA Today, and it was all over. You might remember this in the '90s. It was on every single channel. Then fewer and fewer people started showing up at the clubs, and so I sort of saw the writing on the wall. And I guess that's one of those other things. The life lesson that I sort of took from some of that is you kind of trust your gut instincts, because my instincts were like, you got to move. And so I ended up switching from stand-up comedy into radio. And I was glad I did, because there was definitely a time there where it was harder and harder to get on stage. And there were fewer people going out to clubs. And so, yeah, that's how I ended up doing radio for about a dozen years or so.
It must have been really hard when everybody started watching on TV, because you can't use the same material twice or three times. You have to continually be inventing new material and then testing it in small venues so that you can make sure it's funny before you hit the big ones. That must be really a hard thing to do all the time.
Well, Leno was famous for that, right? Leno was famous for going to the clubs, the Comedy Store, whatever it was. And even later years, when he was doing the Tonight Show, he would go to the Comedy Store. He's an old road hack. And so he would go and test out his stuff on audiences. And you do that a couple of times and you can make it better. It's like a test audience. And so that way he knew this stuff would work. I mean, that was one of the big sort of transitions from moving stand-up comedy into radio. Is with stand-up, I could do sort of the same solid 7-12 minutes in the beginning. I could do that every night as long as I was moving around. Or radio, you got to come up with new stuff every day. It's like, have I done that joke before? Yes, that was off the list now.
Yeah. Mitch, any thoughts?
No, yeah, I mean, all of these things, you have to think about it and be articulate about how you present things. And some things you can repeat, and I feel like some you can't. But knowing when and what avenue that you need to be mindful of that stuff, at least for you, since you did so many things, keeping track seems like a lot of work.
But the advantage I have now is with the writing is I have all that material that I had from my stand-up days, all like the best sort of jokes or scenarios I had from radio, and I could farm those into a lot of my writing. And so that's actually been really good for me. I just have to make sure I don't repeat that, because there are times, and you just sit back and go, have I used that bit? So I got to like go into each Word document of my past books and go, have I used that bit before? But yeah, no, it's been great. I've been really enjoying it.
Now, from what I can gather here, you've got the Hell Inc. has got 7 books or 8 books.
It's got 8 books. The 9th one the final book is coming out next year.
But there's a new book that's come out as well in September.
There is Kane, which came out in August, and Kane's the new series.
Oh, okay.
And the reason why I didn't finish Hell Inc. is because Kane, this new series, links to the other, and Kane plays a part. This main character, Kane, plays a main part in the last book. So I started a new series this year. First one was in August, second was in September, as you said, and the third one comes out here next week, Kane Unhinged. So that's been really fun to do. It's just the joy of creating. I just love that when you open yourself up to that kind of influence, or like I mentioned with the narcolepsy, that kind of creativity, because I really think, and it's hard to describe what narcolepsy is to other people. One person said to me, I've heard it described as stay up for 30 hours, now go to work. Now, when you get home from work, now make dinner for the family, and now hang out with your spouse and chat about your day. So I don't really know what it's like for other people. I just know how I feel. And so I'm tired all the time, or I'm sleepy all the time. And I got to make sure, like even talk with you guys, I'm laser focused down and make sure I'm paying attention, because otherwise my mind begins to drift. And where that can feel like a bit of a negative, I actually do see it these days as a bit of a superpower. Because if I do sort of sit in a space and I'm quiet, my mind drifts off a bit in a real, I feel like what might be unique. Well, maybe not totally unique. Do you know when you're lying down at night and you're just about to fall to sleep and you're kind of in that dream sleep state and you get some amazing idea? You think, man, I should write that down. That is really good. Now I'll remember that in the morning. And you wake up the next morning and you don't remember it and you didn't write it down and you have no idea what that was. That state, I'm in that state 80 to 85% of my day. And it helps me create unusual stories, I guess, and unusual tales and characters. And so I see narcolepsy as a superpower. And there's one that's helped me write, 11, 12 books now.
Yeah, see, my problem is that I have two places that I sleep. One is the recliner, and then the other one is when I get up and go to bed, and which really for me works out well because I can watch the same movie twice, sometimes 3 times, and not catch the whole thing all at the same time. It's like part 1, 2, and 3.
My wife we were watching, she wanted to finish this Crown series, right? And it's fine if you like the Crown and all, it's fine. But then she started falling asleep, and then I looked over, grabbed the remote, and quietly I switched it off to something else. And I tell you what, the moment I was watching that, he said, you were snoring. No, I wasn't. You were snoring. I was not. Tell me the last thing you saw happen. The woman, the thing with the crown, did the thing. But no. Yeah, no, she falls asleep on the couch all the time. I actually, narcolepsy is a weird thing because where you're tired all the time, depending on sort of what flavor of narcolepsy you have, I actually have a delightful combination of narcolepsy and insomnia. So I don't sleep very well at all. This morning I was up at 4:30 and I woke up 3-4 times overnight. So that's the lot I've got. But like I said, I have no complaints because it's given me a heck of a careers. 4.
You've had a bunch. You've had you've had a really, really interesting life. But Mitch, I just wanted to share with you the fact that see, I'm not the only one that falls asleep when you're watching TV. So you look at what you've got to look forward to.
I mean, I'll fall asleep watching TV. It just depends. But I mean, I think if you're in the recliner for hours on end, sleep isn't inevitable. It's going to happen. So.
I don't know what you're talking about. Hours on it.
There is something though when you like fall asleep on the couch, and how it's so easy to fall asleep on the couch, and then you go lie down in bed, and like I can't fall asleep.
Yeah,
and I can't.
Right
There's a new term. There's some new big fancy psychological term for that. Basically, you've sort of used up some of your sleep juice. That's not, I don't think, the scientific expression for it.
No, you have a set amount of time. I do the same thing. I have about a 2 to 5 minute max window. If I don't get back to sleep, my body's like, we're up. And I only took a 2-hour nap, and then it's, 11 o'clock. And then I'm trying to go back to sleep. And then there I am at 3 a.m. laying there, thinking about
and it gets worse and worse. And it gets worse and worse because you get anxiety from not being able to fall asleep. You said, sleep now. And you can't command yourself to fall asleep. It's sad that way.
Yeah.
And by the way, Mitch, why don't you take us to break? Because we're talking with Dick Wybrow, and he's a stand-up comic. He's an author. He's got 8 books out. He's got a couple of books that are coming out this fall. One's out and another one's coming. You should get those. But Mitch, take us to break real quick. And Dick, thank you for being here. You're delightful. You're just.
I really enjoyed my time with you guys. Thank you so much, and enjoy the longest day of the year.
We're not done with you yet. We got another half to go. So
great.
Have a cup of coffee and we'll be right back. No, go ahead, Mitch.
When the shortest day meets the longest day. But to all of our beautiful listeners out there, you're listening to Positive Talk Radio on KKNW 1150. Stay tuned. We're going to talk with Dick Wybrow a little bit more. Stay tuned here for a couple more minutes.
Do you need to boost your sales? Join our partnership program. Each quarter, we promote 10 partner businesses. What will you get? The company will produce one 30-second video for your business. Your website links on positivetalkradio.net and kmmedia.pro. One dedicated podcast or radio show per month. One video Instagram reel. One YouTube short. One 60-second clip for social media taken from your interview, and at least one commercial airplay per show. All podcast and video commercials are within the fabric of the show and will remain in the show forever. Visit kmmedia.pro to book a consultation today. 。
When you want to say more than words communicate, you can with flowers. Your custom boutique floral studio in Bothell, Washington is anaturaldesign.com, connecting you to nature through the language of flowers. Where your people are is where our flowers are beautiful. Your success is our goal. For being our appreciated listener, you can use promo code PTR20 at checkout to receive 20% off your order. anaturaldesign.com at your fingertips today.
We believe in the power of telling your stories. We want to help yours be seen and heard. At the Pacific Northwest Collaborative Magazine, our purpose is to connect you to your community. Let's begin by celebrating the accomplishments of local artists featured in this brand new digital magazine. Here, you can learn about opportunities to creatively come together and support our local community and neighbors through the gift of art and service. If your business or organization would like to take part in this magazine, message us on Instagram at pnw.collab. You can download our free digital magazine at KM Media Pro today.
Thank you to our dedicated fans. We are updating our live on-air schedule to make it super easy for you to hang out with us 5 days a week, Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We broadcast on YouTube, Facebook, and live on Fridays with Kixie 8:80 a.m. Seattle Live. You can find our library to binge all the podcast platforms. We can't wait to see you at 3 p.m. Monday through Friday, starting September 4th, Labor Day 2023.
And welcome back to Positive Talk Radio. We have a tremendous guest and a lot of fun guy. First of all, I want to make sure, Dick, that I haven't massacred your name the entire show, which I believe.
Right. I'll tell you, it's Wybrow. It's like eyebrow with a W. It's a horrible British name. I can't seem to get rid of it.
But it works. And the cool thing is, not only are you a stand-up comic, you're an author, you're a DJ, you've done all these cool things, but you also have a blog. And one of the things that caught my eye was reading your blog, and it says, creating, camping, and not getting shot.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, it's real. New Zealand is real hands-off for the most part when you come here. And we learned that. In fact, we've done a lot of traveling around New Zealand, my wife and I, in the last couple of years. And like when we ended up going to Dunedin, there's a place called Larna Castle, and there's this old castle, but I mean old in the sense of New Zealand. This is it's probably 1980s. I don't know. I think it's like 100 years old or so. This isn't a very old country. But what was nuts is, so we're driving, and as we're going around this sort of like this mountainy kind of range, as you're going around, you realize that there's no guardrail there. I mean, if you're not paying attention, you're over the side. And so their thought is like, well, you shouldn't do that. And it's like, but they don't really have the litigation happy society like we've got in the U.S. And so they're just like, yeah, if you end up hurting yourself or dying, that really, you shouldn't do that. And so when we ended up going camping here just a short time ago, we ended up going and getting some kayaks and the woman at this campground, and we had the whole place to ourselves just about with us. And so it was like, we had some kayaks. She goes, yeah, you can paddle up here, go down this creek over here. It is hunting season, so you may want to keep your head down. It's like, what? So I might be mistaken for a duck. And she said, well, they're drinking. And so, but that was the warning. That was the warning. It was like, you can go up the creek, you go up this little river here, but duck if you hear a boom. Basically, I think is what she was saying.
Isn't it too late?
They're just real loose about how they do things here, and it's a fun attitude to be a part of. To be honest, it's real chill. I love it. It's an amazing place to be.
Mitch is he likes whiskey a lot. Not that he likes it a lot, but he's a connoisseur, and he's talking about doing a podcast around that. And so I was just kind of curious, what is a favorite beverage in a pub? Is that what you call it, a pub in New Zealand?
I mean, it's tough because they'll call it pubs and bars. A favorite beverage, they're pretty straight up. They're just like, you know what it is? They're like Americans without the shame of drinking. Do you know what I mean? You like the
Yes.
idea that, oh, I'm gonna get out of here and grab a beer. And I remember I used to work. It's like, you feel like you need a beer? Do you feel like you have to have one? And so there's that sort of like shame about it. Like the next day, if you're hungover, you'd never say I'm hungover. You're like, oh, I must have caught something last night. So yeah, what you caught is a 12-pack of beer. Is what you caught. Here, no shame whatsoever. You know, your boss comes in, oh, I'm really hungover. There's none. There's a massive drinking culture here. And I was told that the drinking culture is how it helps them reproduce, because the Kiwi white boys here are very shy, and without alcohol, there'd be nobody left. It would be an empty country for the most part. It'd be very few people here.
So the men are very shy. Are the women less so?
Yeah, for the most part, you know, it's it's funny, and in a serious sort of not too serious, but a serious note, there's something here called tall poppy. And I don't know if you ever heard of this before. So the idea is, and it's kind of it's really ingrained. It's worth Googling at some point. Take a look at it. And apparently Japan has something like this. It's called like something like hammer nail or some whatever it might be. But the point being is, if you stick your head up too high, you know, they'll cut you off. So any tall poppies, they lop off. And so and that's going away a little bit, I think. But so like I met a guy, a friend of mine named Mark. And he was hanging out with me one time, and he said, you know, I just really I'd only known him for a couple of years at this point. He said, I love hanging out with you because I can say anything to you. I said, well, yeah, of course you can. He's like, well, I can't say that with my friends. These are people he's known for decades, 20 years, 25 years. But there's something in sort of some of the what we call Pakia Kiwi culture here, and that's the European descent Kiwi culture, that a lot of times you don't really voice your opinion. You don't really say what you're thinking. And it's something that gets kind of ingrained in them, because if somebody does, then they're like, oh, who does he think he is? And so that's how he grew up. And so they're just hesitant. They're reluctant to sometimes voice opinions or say some stuff. And it can be really fascinating. You could put and this is generalized, but you can put 8 like Kiwi white boys into a room and come back 10 minutes later, and they'll just all be on their phones or just staring out the window. You do that with 8 Americans, after 10 minutes, they all know their life history. But there's probably been a fight. At least an arm wrestle, if nothing else. It's just, and I'm not saying one's better than the other. I'm just saying there's very different style of communicating. We all speak English, but it's a very different style of communicating a lot of times.
And each culture's different. Because down there it's different. Now, if you go to Australia, they're even different than New Zealand, right?
Oh yeah. In fact, there was I think it was just last year, because you notice how the Australian accent is a little bit odd. It sounds like it's bent. All the vowels are all bent around the edge. And I'm not making this up, this is true, they have worked out the derivation of that accent, because of course Australia, they're all criminals. We all know this. And so they came down from the UK on the boats full of criminals, and they came there. So why don't they have British accents? Here's why. It's because, and Aussies are probably proud of this, because of the drinking culture there. They were drunk so much, eventually they're like, listen, get me over there to the koala. That became the accent, because the kids would hear the accent and pick it up. And what they were hearing was a drunk Aussie accent. And eventually, I'm not making this up, this has been studied by Australians. Of course, keep in mind, the Australians were probably drunk when they did the study. So there is some question about the validity of it. But that accent comes from people that have been drinking. And it is very different culture. I mean, they are out loud and brash and a lot of fun. They remind me a lot of Americans, to be honest. They're just really fun and positive and really energetic. Whereas, the Kiwis are more demure. It's a little bit like Canada is New Zealand in a way, or New Zealand is Canada, and like Aussie's US. It's a little bit like that. But the most positive between Aussie and New Zealand is the fact that we don't have anything that'll kill us over here. We don't have any snakes. We don't have any poisonous spiders. We don't have crocodiles. We don't have anything. We have nothing. Over there, everything will kill you over there. They've got poisonous spiders. They've got poisonous sharks. I think they have poisonous sharks. They've got a poisonous jellyfish. I think they've got caterpillars that are poisonous.
They do. And they've got this particular spider that likes to hang out in your visor of your car.
Yeah.
And so when the sun comes out and you lower your visor, you end up with a spider on your lap. And these things can eat a cat.
Awesome.
Yeah, they're awful. We've been over there a couple of times, and my wife on occasion says, "Oh, we should move here, live here for a while." I say, "No, no spiders. I can't do them. I have a horrible. It's not a fear. It's a phobia. Totally different thing. It's not fear. It's a phobia, and I can't stand them. She kills all the spiders in the house for me. I shall have her do that for me. But no, it's a beautiful place. Even their birds are loud. Yeah, when the Aussie birds come over here, you can tell which one's the Aussie birds because it's like, what is making all that racket? It's got to be an Australian bird.
They're probably drunk too.
They are. I think. Do you know what? It's funny you say that. So here, so there's a bird here in New Zealand. It's called the tui. Look this up. Google it. So there's a lot of googling going on with the show. But so there's a bird called the tui, and it's also called the Parsons bird, which is like preacher, right? And so it's a bird. It's got this little fluffy thing. I don't know what it's for. It's the bottom of its neck. It's like this little fluffy sort of almost like a priest collar. And so there are times of the day, and this was told to me up at Mbarai, just north of here. There are times of the day where you'll hear this outside. You hear this thumping sound. And what it is the tui birds, these are kiwi birds now, they go and they get berries in the morning and they put them in their mouths and let them sit in their throats, right? Their stomach acids then ferment the berries and create alcohol. And these birds are drunk by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, falling out of trees. So that's evolution. These birds have beat us. They have now learned how to create booze, wine in their bodies. So one day they'll take over from us.
Hey, what's it called again?
It's a tui, Tui. Look it up. They're amazing birds. They got an incredible call too. It's super complicated. It's really nuts. But of course they're drunk. So that probably has a lot to do with that.
Jeez. All right.
Mitch, I think you would do well in Australia. I'm not so sure about New Zealand. What do you think?
Well, as we've heard, a lot of factors to take in.
Well, and you've got to learn the language because, like I said, like a Kiwi will never say "don't do that." That's way too direct. So like you'll say something like, "Oh, I was thinking about going and climbing to the top of that tree." And then instead of saying you're an idiot, don't do that, like an American or Canadian might, they'd go, "Oh, you could do." And so that's their version of saying, "Yeah, don't do that. That's stupid." And so you've got to learn some of the language. And
I would do terrible there then.
It's hard.
Stuff like that all the time. And all if somebody says, "Yeah, you could do it," I'm like, I know I can do it, but I just needed that one. I just needed that one person to tell me just that one little bit of reassurance that I could do it. So if I went over there and somebody was like, "You could do," I'd be like,
"Yeah, sounds like a challenge."
I'd be like, "I'm about to do."
Yeah,
and that's before the whiskey.
Yeah, exactly right.
Mix that in there, and I don't need any reassurance.
It took a while to get some of that. One day I got to put together kind of a Kiwi to American English dictionary if I can ever work it out.
Yeah. Now, is it true that the fastest way to get an Australian to fight with you is if you said you're just like an American?
I don't think so. I think I think Aussies are okay with that. There's Kiwis over the last 8-10 years since we've been here. They have a fascinating relation with Americans. It's kind of like they love American culture, but some Americans are a little bit frowny face on it. I don't know if this was post-Trump or whatever it was, but there was definitely a turn when our boy ended up taking office. I'm not trying to be political. I'm just telling you exactly when that turn came, because it seemed that right around that time, there was a little bit more aggression towards Americans than there had been before then. But I mean, for the most part, Kiwis are loving to everybody. They're really sweet. But you don't want to call an Australian a New Zealander because that'll get their goat. They're not into that at all. They're quite proud of that. And I think for the most part, Kiwis are like, it's fine. It's fine. We don't care.
So is it easy for you for like an American to go hang out there for like 5 or 6 months?
I don't know what the visa rules are, but to be honest, and you think I'm joking about this, if you came in, let's say you got a month visa and you stayed 3 months, they'd be like, that's fine. I'm not joking. They're just like, it's fine. It's totally fine. Don't worry about it. Like, whereas an Aussie, like a woman ended up flying into Australia. She was a Kiwi woman, flew into Australia. She had a chicken sandwich, and that broke a bunch of biosecurity rules. That cost her $3,000 going into Australia, and they are not bending. In fact, there was a Kiwi dude that ended up paying the bill for her. But here, when I first flew here, I ended up breaking all. So I was so tired when I came over after that flight. I'm going through areas with red stripes on them, and flashing lights. I was like, "Am I not supposed to be here?" And this dude just grabbed me by, just gently grabbed me, arm around my shoulders. Hey, I'll take it back over here. Totally chill about it. Had I done that in San Francisco, they would have stepped on my neck and put a rifle to the back of my head. So they're just really chill about stuff. I'm not saying break laws when you get here, but if you want to stay a bit longer, you're probably fine.
Oh, that would be good. Because you see, as we discussed earlier, this is the longest day of the year for you. It's the shortest day of the year for us. It's 50 degrees. It's 75 there, and you don't have any bugs really, and you don't have any snakes or any of those things. And it is because they shot on Jackson's shot the Lord of the Rings there. It's a beautiful country.
Hobbiton. They got Hobbiton in a place called Matamata just over here. And from the story that I heard was when they built all those sets, that Peter Jackson was like, hey, listen, I want to make this a bit of a tourist attraction. So when you're sort of making these sets, don't just make them sort of, these front facing things. These need to be something that's going to be able to last a couple of years or decades or so. And so it's beautiful. In fact, it's funny because a lot of Kiwis, we became a bit of a Hobbiton beard in a way, if you know what I mean, because what happened was Kiwis don't want to go to Hobbiton, right? Because they're above that. But they could say, oh, we're just taking our Kiwi cousins, Dick and Tiffany, over to Hobbiton. And so they would take us so that they could go, but they were really just taking us. So we've been like 4 or 5 times. Afterwards, like, listen, I got other things to do. I've seen all this before. No, you want to go to the Green Dragon? I've been to the Green Dragon. Well, we don't need to do that. But so for the entire family, they use us as a gateway to get into Hobbiton to go check it out.
I tell you, it'd be a lot of fun to be you. And by the way, we're talking to Dick Wybrow. And if you want to go to his website, dickwybrow.com. And
still Wybrow.
What did I say? Highbrow?
We got
I
Highbrow.
thought you were making a joke, but I think you just
it did a little bit. Yeah.
I would
like
to think I was making it. Now I can tell you I was making a joke about that. Wybrow is Dick's last name, and
that's totally fine.
I have trouble with. See, English is my second language. I live in Seattle, and anyway. But he's got 8 books out. The latest series of books is Cain, and the third book is coming out, or the second book is coming out, and then the third book.
So the first one came out in August. The second one came out in September, and the third one, Cain Unhinged, comes out here on December 26th. So we're talking about 1 week away, and so it's a third in the series. And as we speak now, I am working on book number 4. And I'm having a blast with it. It's a fun series to do. And it's one of those that I just sort of let the characters take me wherever they want to go. There are a couple different types of authors. There's your planners. Those planners are like your Isaac Asimovs, where they sit down and say, I'm going to do this chapter. That's what we're going to do next. This scene's going to be next. And you have what are called pantsers, or discovery writers. And that's what I am. I just sort of go in and go like, I don't know. What am I doing? I don't know. and I just let the characters take me. And what's really fun about this one, so this is amazing to me. So we always talk about how like social media is a big negative, right? For the most part, it's not a huge negative, but there's a lot of darkness on social media. But I've had an amazing relationship with the readers of this series, and even in the past. And so every now and then I get the amazing opportunity to talk to a reader group. And I've spoken to people, like they'll get together, they'll all read the book, and they'll want me to zoom in. And so I zoom in and chat with them. And I've chatted with people in the US and Canada and the UK. And so this was so neat. So I'm speaking to a group in the UK, and this lovely woman from, I don't know where I think she said New Brighton. I always say that she's from New Brighton because I think it sounds neat. I don't know why. But so this woman from New Brighton, and all that morning, I had been sitting there writing book 3, and I was struggling. I was like, I don't know where I'm going from here. And I was just, it's a little bit like we talked before about trying to sleep. The more I started to think about it, the more difficult it was to actually create and come up with something. So I put that on hold. I ended up speaking to this group in the UK with this woman from New Brighton. And she says, you know what? It would be really amazing. I can't wait to hear more about Cain when he was growing up on the farm. I want to hear more about Cain in his childhood, how he turned when he became, because he was a wolf and now he's a human, that year that he spent with this lovely British Canadian couple. And I went, that's exactly what I'm doing in book 3. You've nailed it. It's exactly my idea. And so that question from her, that thought, helped influence book 3. And I ended up putting this entire storyline. I've spoken to her since and thanked her. But that bit of influence, sort of like, I guess I was sort of open to it. Maybe 15 years ago, I might not have been open to somebody's sort of like suggestion. And there wasn't even a suggestion. This was a desire of hers. She wanted to find out more about this character when he was younger. And so that ended up becoming one of the threads through book 3. And that all came from just this interaction, this me connecting to this woman 12,000 miles away, which is pretty amazing.
That really is. Now, when you put your book together, do you do an outline of what each character is and their background and who they are, or does it just kind of flow?
Yeah, so what I try and do is I have a basic idea of the characters, and the way I write is I just sort of let them grow, and I always find a character development usually through the interaction. I don't like info dumps where I say this, this is their past, and here's what happened, and here's all the stuff that happened before this moment. I try and express some of that stuff through the dialogue between these two characters, and so, but I got to take notes along the way. But I know it sounds totally flaky, but the characters make a lot of the choices for me. They decide about, something from their past or something that bothers them or whatever it might be. But I have a lot of faith in the subconscious and the way that kind of cooks together. And I remember years ago when I was on radio, I had the great honor to interview Tom Petty. And Tom Petty said to me, because people would come to him and say like, well, where does your inspiration come from? And he would laugh. But his way of putting it was, well, these gifts, they just come down to me. I don't go get them. They just come down to me. And I thought it was a perfect way to express it. And that's what it is. It's just sort of moments and gifts that come down, and you have to be open and minded enough to kind of grab them. And I grab those and put those into stories, and I've been very lucky. People seem to like it.
Is it almost kind of like a download?
I suppose, but I think you also have to be open to it. You know what I mean? That's the thing is, you have to sort of trust. I hate to say the expression, trust the process, but I have a lot of faith in it. I go into every single book. And as you mentioned, I've got 8 in one series. I've got 3 in this. I got 2 more to go in this particular series. At the start, I've just started book 4. At the start of every book, I go, I can't do this. I'll never do it every single time. But I know that now. I know I'm going to have those feelings of anxiety. I know every time I start and I open up, the beginning of a chapter, at the beginning of a book, that you have that imposter syndrome of like, I have no business doing this. I don't know. I know nothing about writing. But then now that I know that I do that, I just kind of work through it and move on from there. So I don't have any real process other than I just leave myself open, and I got to take a lot of notes along the way. I do take a lot of notes as I go. A friend of mine actually writes some scenes out of order. He just sort of chases after the scene that he feels like writing that day. That sounds bananas to me, because I got to write in order. I'll forget where I'm going. But there's no right way or wrong way to write. If you want to write something, and I know there's a lot of people listening that think that they want to just start writing something, but they don't know how to start. Just do it. Just start writing. And as I tell people, I just get your clay together, get it all in there. Just keep writing, get your clay together. And then the editing process is chipping away all the stuff that doesn't look like your book. And then eventually you'll make it work. But just keep writing, get it in there. You'll finish it. That's really
good advice. Mitch, what do you think?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. There's so many different writing styles. So it's always interesting to hear different people, how they.
You find the one that works for you. Mitch, are you trying to write a novel?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I've just recently started exploring doing some screenplay writing, but that's about it. I've thought about writing a novel, and I've had some ideas, but not realistically.
Taika Waititi's got some interesting thoughts. The way he writes screenplays, he writes them as set pieces. It's a little bit like that dude I was telling you a moment ago. He writes a bunch of set pieces, so he'll write like 8 to 12 different funny scenes or funny scenarios. And then he finds a way to weave those all together. And if you watch his films, a lot of times you go, I can totally see that. So he doesn't write linear in that sense either. He just writes sort of funny scenarios, loops everything together and finds a bit of a theme, because your themes come after you've written it. People always think that, when you came in, what was your idea? What was your theme? I don't know. Once I get done, people tell me what the theme is. And then I can tell people in interviews. I have no idea otherwise.
Exactly. By the way, we've been talking with Dick Wybrow, and I want to thank you, Dick, for coming on the show. Go to his website, which is Dick Wybrow, WYBROW.com. And I want to thank you for being here. We've run out of time. I could talk to you all day long. Mitch, how about you?
Yeah. I mean, that went quick.
Kevin and Mitch, I had a blast. I really did. And thank you for the Positive Talk Radio listeners. I really appreciate you taking some time to carve it out for me. You're
an awesome dude, and I hope to have you back when you get to your 50th novel. No, soon. I want to have you back because you're fun. We'll do it again. It's a lot of fun. I think we're doing it again anyway. So
yeah, we are.
Good. That'll be fun. Mitch, it's time for us to go. I want you to go ahead and take us out, please.
Oh, sure thing. All right. Again, to all of our listeners, we have Dick Wybrow with us. Check him out at dickwybrow.com. You're listening to Positive Talk Radio on KKNW 1150. And remember, be kind to one another because each other is all we've got.
Oh, you're getting better. That's good. Thank you. Hey. And I think we're done. Are we done?